Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse from Law Astrology, and in this recording I'm going to be doing an Astro Tarot reading for the upcoming new moon. So this is the new moon that takes place at 10:16 a.m. Universal Time on the 23rd of December 2022, and the moon and sun will be at 1 degree and 32 minutes of the sign Capricorn. Now, normally these readings for the lunations are for my patrons only, but in this instance, given that it is Christmas, it is solstice, I decided to make this recording public so that you can all listen to it, to say thank you very much for following me throughout the year on social media, those of you on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and of course, those of you who have subscribed here on my YouTube. So thank you so much for your support for my work. It is very, very much appreciated. Now, normally when I do these recordings for my patrons, I always welcome the new patrons who have joined since the last lunation, and I will do that here. So hello and welcome to Brianna, Joe, Jamie and Jennifer. So as we come to this lunation, to get a feel of the background picture, we know Mars is still retrograde, of course, and now we also have Mercury moving very, very slowly. It's now in its shadow period because it too is shortly about to go retrograde as well. We also have a lot of out of bounds action again. So we have the Moon, Venus, Mars, Pallas, Hygeia and Black Moon Lilith. They are all out of bounds. And again, this brings us this feeling of a wild quality to it. It's almost like anything and everything could possibly happen. Jupiter there on the 0 degrees of Aries is also catching my eye as I say this. So yeah, it kind of feels like absolutely anything could happen right now. And that can be exciting, but it also can be a bit disconcerting at the same time, especially as we are in Capricorn territory right now. And Capricorn likes to know where it is and what's going on. It makes a plan. So there's a certain cautiousness to Capricorn. So this is somewhat uneasy. There's a very strong cardinal energy to this chart. So cardinal also likes to get things started. And then there is a super strong presence of planets in earth signs. So we've got, generally speaking, a Capricorn overtone to the chart, but also this distinct sense that we're really dealing with the material world right now. This is what this chart is asking us to look at, to deal with reality. We've also got a bowl-shaped chart as well. So this has been with us for a while now. So the bowl-shaped chart, we've got the moon leading this pattern. So the moon in Capricorn, so the moon is about our needs. I need structure, stability, tradition, boundaries. I need these things in my life, and it feels like there is some kind of struggle with this though, because the moon and sun are also square to Jupiter on that 0 degrees of Aries. So Jupiter in Aries, newly ingressed into Aries, is feeling like it's blowing the doors wide open. The 0 degrees of Aries, we call it the Aries point. It's the beginning of all things. So this is like super excited about all these new beginnings, all these new possibilities, and the sense of, I want to say, freedom. I mean, Aries is a very, very independent sign. And Jupiter in Aries is very much about let's make my own opportunities, kick open all the doors. I'm going to do it for myself. I believe in myself. I have faith in myself, which is great. But the new moon is in Capricorn, which is squaring Jupiter. And the new moon in Capricorn, like I said, is cautious. but also there are rules, there are restrictions, there are boundaries. There are simply some things that cannot be done, or they cannot be done yet. And sometimes we don't like it when we feel these kinds of limitations coming into play. And I think as well, we're also probably going to be asked to explore perhaps where we also limit ourselves. So the positives of Jupiter tugging against this Capricorn new moon might be that for some of us who struggle to take the initiative or to feel confident, perhaps Jupiter will encourage us and say, you know what, if you want to climb that really big mountain, Capricorn, you can do it. You just have to believe in yourself. So we've also got the possibility of reading it that way round. So for some people, it's going to be about giving ourselves a boost to trust that we can get to where we want to be. We can set that intention, the new moon, and get to the top of that mountain. For other people, it's that there's going to be a need to carefully manage some of that exuberance from Jupiter and recognize that there are certain limits and time limits as well, and time frames, all those kinds of things. Now, this is a very interesting lunation anyway. I mean, we can see that there's a lot of Capricorn in this chart. So I told you about the Capricorn overtone. And you can actually see the house here with Hygeia, the Sun and the Moon, and Venus and Mercury and Pluto. And as I mentioned, Mercury is going to have a retrograde here as well. So there is an enormous amount of focus on Capricorn right now. And I always think it's kind of interesting as we come to the end of the year, and we are often in a frame of mind where we're thinking about, well, what have I done this year? What did I achieve? Those of you who set perhaps resolutions, or if you're like me and enjoy planning and focusing on certain goals at the beginning of the year and setting yourself certain targets, whether it's business or personal, then naturally when we come to the end of the year, we start to look at, well, did I achieve any of this? What did I accomplish? And sometimes we find, I think often we find that we haven't done perhaps everything we set out to do. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world if we didn't achieve every single thing on the list. And the same for the future. Again, that Jupiter energy there with the sort of sense of buoyancy and excitement, and I'm going to write 20 things down that I'm going to achieve in January 2023. And we get so excited and so overly invested in this idea that suddenly on January the 1st, 2023, we're going to wake up a whole different person and not have any of these limitations that we have right now. And of course, that's not realistic. So all this Capricorn energy is really asking us to be realistic. That does not mean being pessimistic. So Jupiter is really good for just nudging that pessimism away. Now, this new moon is going to be conjunct Hygeia. I mentioned Hygeia is there, and she is extremely close to the Sun and the Moon. They're on the same degree, all on 1 degree of Capricorn. And I know I've talked before about Hygeia and Capricorn, but just to go over this again, because now it has become part of this lunation, that we are now looking at how healthy are the structures that we have in place. How strong are they? How supportive? Are they going to prevent problems later down the line? Do we need to have better structures in place or better support in place? Is the work that we are doing, because Capricorn, the global 10th house, can speak of our career and the kinds of work we do out there in the world, or just the responsibilities that we have out there in the world. Either way, is it healthy for us? Is it doing us any good? Or is it causing us some physical problems or some mental problems, emotional problems? It's really important to look at all of this. And also, like I was saying before, about setting goals and resolutions and intentions and all those kinds of things, factoring in our health and well-being, our overall well-being. So again, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, mental health, all these things, factoring those in to the intentions, the goals, the things that we hope to accomplish, because Capricorn can be almost like a stern outer character that we perceive is going to tell us that we've failed or that we're not good enough, especially with Venus there in Capricorn right now as well. So the fear of failure is very strong with this Capricorn, and it's almost like Hygeia is there saying, let's stop this before it starts. Don't get into that whole I'm not good enough, I'm going to be a failure, or I already am a failure because I didn't do this or this year. So Hygeia is asking us to look at all of these things. Now, I mentioned that there is a square to Jupiter, but we've also got a square to Ceres. And this T-square pattern, Jupiter, Ceres, Hygeia, has been ongoing for a couple of weeks now. I talked about it in one of the weekly forecasts. I think I talked about it in two of the weekly forecasts, where we originally had Jupiter hanging out on the 29th degree of Pisces, opposing Ceres when she was in Virgo, and both of them were squaring Hygeia in Sagittarius. And now they've kind of all moved at roughly the same rate, and now they're still all connected with one another. So Ceres opposite Jupiter. Now we've got this whole impetus with Ceres in Libra to nurture our relationships. This is how life will flourish, says Ceres, if we nurture our relationships, if we look after one another, if we foster the idea of diplomacy and equality and all that kind of good stuff. But Jupiter in Aries, I've just said before, it is all about the autonomy and doing it for ourselves. And you know, we've got this pulling against one another, the things that we want to do for ourselves, and at the same time, the need, the instinct to want to connect with other people and to keep those partnerships functioning well. And then we've got Hygeia there saying those support systems are necessary. Like we need the support systems from the people that we love. But also at the same time, we need to be able to support ourselves for the times that those people aren't there or can't be there for whatever reason. So Hygeia's presence in this chart in Capricorn conjunct the new moon is really asking us to look ahead, try to just sort of peer into the future and just preempt where there might be any issues that are stemming from sort of either trying to do it all alone or going completely the other way and constantly focusing on the relationships that we have and trying to please everybody else. We need to do something. We need to manage this better. That's the whole thing with Capricorn as well. And Hygeia in Capricorn is like, we need to have some boundaries. We need to have, again, some limitations or maybe some rules that we apply here so that we can better manage this situation or these situations. Now, the other thing that I think is important to mention is that on the same day as the new moon in Capricorn, we also have Chiron stationing direct. This lunation is not aspecting Chiron, but because it is stationary, it has already just gone into direct motion, but it's still on the same degree. So it's stationary. It gives it added weight, it gives it added emphasis, it sort of pulls us towards it. It's like it's got some gravity to it. And I mentioned previously that Chiron moving into direct motion can often represent the idea of when we are trying to get strong again. You know, we've been hurt, we've suffered, we've gone through some pain, we've been scarred by life in whatever ways. But now we've got to, like Chiron, start to move forwards again. The new moon is also giving us that impetus to start to look ahead with Hygeia, but also to look to the long term, because Capricorn is very invested in long-term effort, long-term gains, long-term accomplishments. So we've got to start again, and we can't just kind of hide away. So Chiron stationing direct can make us feel a little bit vulnerable. There is an element of vulnerability because we don't know yet if we're strong enough. Now, Jupiter on that 0 degree of Aries is kind of practically shouting at me, just going, they're strong enough. You're all strong enough. You absolutely can do this. But Chiron knows that sometimes it takes time to warm up. You know, it's Aries after all. Maybe we've got to warm up and get ready for the exercises that we're going to have to do to accomplish whatever it is we're setting out to accomplish around this time. So yes, there is some kind of vulnerability. And I think if you're feeling that, then yeah, maybe some gentle words of encouragement or even strong words of encouragement, you know, that can help sometimes. But again, to be realistic about what you're able to do. And if you have a big goal, if you have something really major that you want to do next year, for example, then don't overface yourself. Don't overface yourself, because that's also Jupiter. And if you overface yourself, then you might try to do too much too soon. And of course, it's like any injury. If you try to do too much too soon, then you can hurt yourself again. And I think that can apply to mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, all those kinds of things, not just physical health. So yeah, give yourself some time and don't take on too much too soon. The other thing I was thinking as well is that this interplay, particularly with Jupiter, is that Jupiter relies on faith. And indeed it is saying, yes, believe in yourself, believe that you can do this, believe in the universe and all those kinds of good things. But Capricorn is more prove it to me. Prove to me that the universe is on my side. Prove to me that I can do this. Prove to me that this is going to happen if I put all this work in. So there's a certain amount of skepticism that's also coming through. Now, sometimes I think skepticism can be a good thing up to a point. You know, I think we do need to be discerning sometimes, especially in the world as it is now, with Neptune in Pisces and lots of, you know, fake information floating around, particularly on the internet. So some skepticism, some discernment is useful, but also sometimes we can be so skeptical that it's just impossible to believe not just in something else or someone else, but also to believe in ourselves. So to build our belief in ourselves, to build ourselves up, again, this might be part of the process of creating these support systems that Capricorn is also associated with. Now, as far as the asteroids are concerned, obviously I've already just mentioned that Hygeia is extremely prominent. I also just wanted to mention that we've got Saturn here again. I know that Saturn figured in one or two other lunations this year. I haven't actually had a look back to see which ones it was, but certainly the name is, you know, sort of popping up to me saying we've done this before. So Aten is to do with Egypt, an Egyptian god, and it means like the disk of the sun. It's like the life force of all things. And in connection with this new moon, I was thinking perhaps it is just that. It is speaking about our life force, our life energy, which is limited here on Earth, in this material world. Remembering there's lots of Earth energy. There's something about respecting the body. I think respecting the body, and also maybe respecting your age if you're older. You know, I'm in my 50s and I recognize I have to take things a little slower. I mean, it's a bit different for me perhaps because I've got some, injuries and sort of problems. But still, I think there's some point you have to kind of accept that the body is changing, if nothing else. And so, I think there's something on here about just being in touch with how our body feels and how your life force energy is flowing. It might even be useful around this time, if you are open to it, to specifically work with that life force energy. For example, having some Reiki, or practicing Reiki if you practice yourself, or doing something like a chakra meditation from YouTube. Anything that helps to bring that life force, that energy, that natural flow back into alignment so that you're feeling stronger, and also that you have good boundaries on an energetic level as well. Sometimes we can, have little leaky spots in our aura. Again, sorry if this is too woo-woo for some people, especially with Capricorn, like looking at me as well. But, I practice healing. I have done for a long time, and I can see auras and all those kinds of things. So sometimes you can kind of see or feel that there are points where the aura just feels like a little bit weak or a little bit woolly. So, you don't have to be able to see or perceive it. You can simply visualize. You can simply close your eyes and trust that you're protected, that you can even visualize a fence around you, or, the typical one is a white light around you, or whatever color you feel protects you, anything along those lines. Or you can ask for some kind of god or goddess or spirit helper, anything like that. You can ask for protection. Remember, Jupiter is a very protective god. So asking for spiritual protection, just to give yourself some reinforcement. That's a wonderful way of using some of this energy in this chart. So Saturn in this chart as well is conjunct Orpheus. So Orpheus was associated with the underworld. That we have the whole story of Orpheus going down into the underworld. He charms Pluto with his amazing musical ability, sings all these wonderful lullabies and songs to Pluto, and gets Pluto to agree to release Orpheus's wife, Eurydice. So Pluto's like, yeah, that's fine. Great song and everything. There's your wife. And so Orpheus escorts his wife out of the underworld. But Pluto has told him that he must not look back. He must not look back until they are completely clear of the underworld. But at some point, Orpheus realizes that he can't hear his wife's footsteps. And so even though they're really near to the edge, he turns around and he looks, and that's it. The spell is broken and Eurydice is swept back into the underworld. So this story illustrates something about lack of faith. He needed to believe, even though he couldn't hear her footsteps. What Pluto wanted Orpheus to do was to keep going, to not have to have that concrete Saturn and Capricorn, not have to have that concrete proof that something is happening. And I think this is partly a message in this chart. I feel like I keep coming back to it. I'm also eyeing the Sabian symbol now as well, so it's starting to get a little like confirmation after confirmation after confirmation here, that one of the big stories is we can't always have that concrete proof that we're looking for, that we're being protected or watched over, or that our goals are going to manifest and our dreams are going to manifest. Sometimes we just have to trust, and that can be very, very hard to keep the faith. How do we keep the faith when reality is perhaps telling us something different? And then, of course, we have to discern whether it's our fears that are just kind of saying, this is not going to happen, or whether it's actually a truth and whatever we've wished for, hoped for, was not in the realms of possibility to start with. So there's a little bit of untangling there to do. But I think if we can go inwards, if we can, like Orpheus, go down, down, down into the underworld and start to tune in to what is going on deep within ourselves, then I think it will be much easier to unravel this and start to formulate this feeling of trust, because it's trust that's going to help us around this time. Now, the Sabian symbol is 3 rose windows in a Gothic church, one damaged by war. So again, we've got this symbol of faith, a church. It's an old, ancient Gothic church. So it's had many, many, many years of practice of people going in there and saying their prayers. I actually went to our cathedral in Manchester a few weeks ago. Obviously, I'm pagan, but there is something about these incredible buildings that it's just stunning. And going in there, I immediately felt the holiness of the place because of all the blessings and the prayers and just everything that has been done. It's not in the name of my goddess. It doesn't matter though. It's the intention that matters. And that energy has built up in that cathedral to such a peak point that I actually felt a real wave of emotion as I walked in there. Really beautiful. And it has these incredible stained glass windows. They're just, they evoke this sense of presence and holiness. So here we've got this incredible church where there has been many prayers, and it invites you to go in. It invites you to go into this sacred space. But we've got a window that's been damaged by war. And so that damage, it's almost like what I was saying before with Chiron, that sometimes it is hard to continue to believe, to continue to have faith when you've been hurt, or when life's let you down, or when somebody, has hurt you, a person's let you down, whatever it is. When life doesn't go the way that we hoped, then that can damage our faith. And yet here we've got 3 rose windows. So there are still 2 windows left, and the other just needs to be repaired, to be reinforced, Capricorn. So what needs to be done to fix this, Chiron? What needs to be done to fix this so that you can look through that window and see life in all its beauty, all its colour? Because again, Capricorn can sometimes be very dour and pessimistic. I used that word earlier, but it's a good one for Capricorn. It's that, well, this is all there is and that's it, and don't expect to be happy. It's like that kind of thing. It can be a bit like Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh. So we need to repair where there has been damage to our faith. that we can accomplish, that we can make a mark on the world, that we can take on responsibilities, that we can, live within this framework, that we can live in this consensus reality. So we can do it. We just need to make these repairs. I'm going to turn now to the tarot, and for this lunation, I'm using my Radiant Rider Waite deck. I often use this deck for Capricorn or strong Saturnian energies because it's very much a tell it like it is kind of deck. And the first card that came out is the Ten of Cups. So this made me think again of Jupiter. This is the everything. I mean, this card, when we have it come out in a spread, it often does speak of excitement, of happiness. I mean, we've got the rainbow there, we've got the happy family, the kids dancing, the lovely house, the blue skies. It's all blue skies. It's all beautiful. Everyone's singing and dancing. It all feels good. This is the feel-good story. Jupiter. This is the feel-good story. This is the thing that we're all looking for. We're hoping for. The wish fulfilled. We chase rainbows to get that pot of gold. We want that everything. So these cards immediately are tuning into this idea that there is all this abundance of happiness and possibility out there. But the problem is Nine of Swords. The problem is that for some reason we're feeling either it's not possible or it just seems to evoke this huge stress. The Nine of Swords is also the fearing the worst. So in a way, it's almost like maybe we're holding ourselves back sometimes because we're actually afraid to be happy. And that is very Saturnian Capricorn kind of attitude as well, like not wanting to get too happy because just around the corner something bad's going to happen. Now, it's prudent to understand that in life we do have our ups and downs, and we go through good cycles and bad cycles, and spring and summer are always followed by autumn and winter. That is just life. But if we start to get too scared to be happy, then that's a problem. And I think this Nine of Swords, whenever it comes out in a spread, it's always there to say, stop fearing the worst. Just stop it. It's keeping you awake. It's keeping you feeling stuck. It's pointless worrying, noting that the swords in this card, the Nine of Swords, you can't see the end of those swords. You can't see the point. There is no point to all this worrying. It's possible for some people that this Nine of Swords might mean that there are some troubles around sleep, or maybe there are nightmares. Now, if you get nightmares, provided they are not kind of connected with PTSD, because that's a different kind of nightmare, if they're just, general nightmares, then actually they can be incredibly useful and in giving you some information that you need. Nightmares are just dreams that are shouting at you, basically. It's just your soul kind of getting a bit fed up and saying, right, okay, I'm going to really shout at you now, so that you sit up and pay attention. And it's not very nice. I mean, I've had some humdingers of nightmares in my life, but every single one of them has had incredibly important information that I've been able to apply to my life and to solve a lot of problems. So the Nine of Swords is stop stressing about it. Stressing about it won't solve the problem. You need to make sure that you sleep right and you eat right. Going back to Capricorn, Capricorn is about adulting. It's also very parental. We've also got Ceres there as well. So there's a difference between kind of smothering yourself, like being overly motherly with yourself. to the point where you're cushioning yourself from any bad experience in life, which is just going to keep you so safe that you don't achieve anything. Or there is the strong Capricorn, which is like the sort of the good parent who allows you to make a few mistakes sometimes. So this Nine of Swords is to look after yourself, and to look after yourself well, remembering Hygeia there as well, of course, to look after yourself as well as you possibly can. And also, if you're not able to, for whatever reason, to know when to ask for support from other people. That's also really important as well. Dealing with the stress levels is a big one with this Nine of Swords coming up. So whatever you need to do to kind of reduce your stress, and if other techniques that you've tried in the past don't work, try something different. There's so many different ways to reduce stress, and not every single way suits every single person. So it's about finding your methods that help you. What helps me is going for walks, photography, obviously doing my tarot and astrology. I need to sleep. If I don't sleep, I get much more stressed than I would like. And just kind of having wind down time is really important. And obviously I meditate as well. But again, it's not for everyone. For other people, it might be music and yoga or going out with friends. It's always very, very personal. But whatever it is for you, apply that around this time if you need, with this Nine of Swords. And then the final card, the High Priestess. This is where we can come to and who we can come to once we have dealt with that stress and anxiety of the Nine of Swords. When we remove that, when we take that out of the equation, then we can directly access this wonderful, wise woman within. Remember, Capricorn as well is associated with old age, the wisdom of experience. It is connected with the bones, with DNA. So we have all of this wisdom in our bones. We also have all of our own personal history to call upon, to explore if we do have any problems. If you're going through something right now, then maybe it is about looking back. How did I overcome something similar to this in the past? Or how can I apply what I've learned in the past to my situation currently? Even if that means I don't know, I've never been in this situation before, so what I need to do is go and ask someone. Remember, Saturn is in Aquarius, the sign that's associated with groups and networks and friends. But the High Priestess is the inner counselor who does have many, many tales and stories to tell you and many answers to give you. And she does this through subtle nudges to your intuition. She tells you, come this way. This is what you need to do, or this is what you need to know. This is what you're feeling. Because a lot of the time we can be really actually out of touch with our feelings with the Nine of Swords, because it's all thoughts. That's the problem. Swords are about thoughts, but the High Priestess is about feelings. The Ten of Cups is feelings. The feeling happy, the wanting to be happy. Well, if we want to be happy, then we've got to listen to our feelings. So countering those negative thoughts and coming into this quiet space where we can address our inner High Priestess in whatever way that is for you. You know, like I said before, I use meditation. You might want to use tarot or oracle cards, or go on a walk and just see what happens, and that might just give you a few synchronicities. Anything along those lines, anything that spurs your intuition, that sparks your intuition, I should say, that is going to be helpful around this time. And just the knowing that you know, I think that is important. Know that you know what you need for this time. If you can remove the stress, the answers are there. This concludes my reading for the new moon in Capricorn. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you many blessings on your path.